Hey everybody, we're starting a Romance of the Three Kingdoms 13 game today. It's a lot later than I was planning on doing this, but uh, I got demotivated when I saw how many videos there were already on for it. Anyways, we got the uh, Fire and Fame expansion pack, whatever the expansion's called. I don't know, I think it's something like Fire and Fame. Pretty good expansion in general. Personally, I preferred the gameplay and the battles, especially before the expansion. I've kind of considered removing the expansion, except for one thing. The one great thing the expansion gave you is the event editor. The event editor is awesome. You can make any event you want. I mean, I love it because Koei doesn't put a ton of the events from history in the game. With the event editor, you can literally create almost any event. I mean, I've come up to a few shortcomings where, I'd wish they had this or wish they had that. But in general, you can pretty much create anything you want with this event editor. And I'll be checking that out in a minute. So right now, I'm just going to go an overview of what they have here. What all you can do, what the expansion added. Like I said, before the expansion, I preferred some of the gameplay. Hasn't been too nerfed, as you might say, but it did take some of the overpowering aspect of it away. If you were really good at putting together the right generals and the right troop combinations and making a massive army, you could literally run over the whole map and it still be fun because they're still putting up a fight because they build up pretty quick if you put the settings to let the PC build up. But that got kind of taken away, made it a little bit more realistic. Even with large armies, you can't just bowl over everything, which is still awesome, but took away some of the some of the maniac aspect of some of the super power, where you get to achieve that level of domination where you just don't the same way. I mean, you can still bring your enemies down, you just not quite the same. Anyways, so with the expansion, you got a general editor, an item editor, which is specialties. They're called specialties items. Strategy editor, which is also, it's kind of cool. I mean, you can only use the strategies they already have. You can rename them, and you can make things more powerful and less powerful. So I'll show you, like, for instance, we've got War God, which is Guan Yu's strategy, and it only affects him. It doesn't affect any of the people around him, except for possibly, AoE. It adds strikes and morale. But as far as attack and defense and his morale, that's what it mostly boosts for him. These are the stats, and you can affect it. You can make it way more powerful or way less powerful, depending on how you want it. But you can't actually go into the explanation up here, which you can change the explanation when you edit it. Here, I'll show you. If you want to go to edit Oregon, you can't go to edit. You gotta go to create, right? Edit register, create registered. There you go. To if you want to, actually act like you're creating your own, like with what it says here, like create registered strategy, which you can't really do. I was really excited when I first saw this feature. I thought, okay, it's going to let me totally change some of these strategies, which there's some awesome ones in here that I want to change if I could, just to make certain aspects of certain characters special, more reflect who I think they are in history is what I would want it for. But you could also superpower things. I mean, for instance, I like this is Liu Bei's original uh, strategy that he has right here, and I mean, it's not bad. I think Liu Bei inspires more morale than that. I think he inspires. There's something else. There's something else that was really apropos. So one of the effects that I wanted to add to Liu Bei's. So anyways, at first I went into Liu Bei's, and you can change the effect details here. You think you could add stuff like, say, you wanted to add also. I mean, you would have to do it in the right order, which I studied the order and figured out how I would have to do it in order to add these. But say you wanted to make this also increase defense, you go in here, D, E, F, and I actually have a keyboard that makes this a lot easier, but I don't have it plugged in right now. And you would figure, okay, maybe he could inspire defense now too. So let's go to these stats, and you can't. It just gives you your attack and demolition and morale. So you can't really add the defense, and then when you go in there, you can see the explanation is still attack and morale. You can't add the defense, even though you can. This is just an explanation of what your strategy does, but editing this explanation doesn't actually have any effect. You can't actually add any effects to previous ones and then change the name and make it new ones. You can see I've added a couple that I created. This one, Charisma God, is the one I give Liu Bei, where he gets mobility up. Yeah, that's what I thought it should come with. I thought it should come with mobility up instead of attack up, because when you inspire people, they get encouraged, go faster. I thought that would be a good one for Liu Bei, especially seeing as he's got a lot of speed generals that are notoriously known for their speed, like Zhao Yun and Ma Chao. So yeah, this is my Liu Bei one. Increase more. Obviously this one's overpowered. I take it off and just use his normal one sometimes to make, but it's just mobility and morale. So as much as it is plus 100 of each, it's only affecting those two things, and just those two things. Where you can see other specialties, like I'll show you like Zhuge Liang's and some of the other ones that affect all of them. So the ones that say ally affect everybody. First Emperor here, which is Liu Bang's one, the one that comes with if you unlock Liu Bang, the first Emperor of the Han Dynasty. And so you can see he increases everybody around him, plus 60 in attack, plus 60 in defense, plus 60 in destructive force, plus 30 in mobility, plus 30 in morale. That's a ton of stuff he's increasing there. So my little one where I increase Liu Bei's really isn't so overpowered as compared to some of the other ones, but just having the additional mobility and morale makes it still almost cheating. Like, I mean, it's nice. Mobility is a good one, and only a few give mobility. Not too many give extra mobility. So that's one of the nicest. Those are some of the nice things that come with the expansion. Another thing that comes with the expansion that a lot of people love, which I think sucks. I've been looking forward to playing what they call PUK power-up kit from all the Japanese versions of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms series. And you've always been able, if you got a computer version of the game, the PC version, you've always been able to download these PUKs, even with US subtitles and everything, but you've never been able to get them to console before. So I've always heard about having your own kids and raising your own kids and stuff, and was so excited about doing that in the game. So this does, with the PUK, it does come with that. With the expansion, it does come with the ability to raise and have kids. Unfortunately, you also have to enable females as officers in general, and you have to have the female officers on your party, in your army, like in your army that you're with, and be married to them in order to have kids with them and raise them. I don't really like this because historically there weren't really many female ministers or generals in ancient China. I'm not trying to be sexist. I just like the realism of that aspect. The females historically in not only this society but a lot of other societies were used mostly as bargaining chips in diplomacy. They're mostly married off to create marriage alliances with other factions. So that's and to raise children. So I still like the 3 wives thing that you can have in here. I like being able to do the kids. I wish you could marry off your daughters too to create marriage alliances. That would be cool. It was actually part of the original game. The first 2 Romance of 3 Kingdoms had marriage alliances that you could marry off your daughters, but they stopped doing that. So yeah, that would be nice, and it would be nice if you could do that without having the females as officers. It's my only beef. I've played a few playthroughs with them as officers. I usually make them civil officers. I think it's kind of ludicrous to make them as war officers, but if the mother doesn't have decent war stats as well, it's going to stunt the child's war stats. So at the same time, you want to have good kids. It's a lot easier, I found, like in the previous ones, just to go to the edit officers and create your lineage. You can create your kids, make yourself their father, and have your kids pop up and come into the gameplay without having to deal with that bullcrap. Plus, there's so much randomness with how your kids develop, as far as if you take them to the market and no stalls are open, and that guy gets kind of screwed over his one of his few educational bumps throughout their childhood, which I could go in deeper on other videos. But yeah, so there's some pros and cons. Now the event editor, which is what is most exciting to me about the expansion, I will show you, and maybe some of you who know some of the history will get a kick out of some of the events I've already created. Now, Cao Cao Dies, Cao Cao Dies is an event I created specifically because in some of the fictional events, Cao Cao lives way too long and gets way too powerful. And in one specific case, I was trying to break up Cao Cao, so I created this event just for one specific scenario in which it was a later scenario where Cao Cao already had like 2/3 of the map, and he was still living on this fictional scenario, and I just had to break him up. So I made a Cao Cao Dies scenario because I was playing a new ruler kind of scenario where I only had one city, and Cao Cao with 2/3 of the map, he just killed everything so fast I couldn't even build up. So that's the Cao Cao Dies event. Heaven's Call is an event that I made for Zhao Yun and Liu Bei, because they don't have the event where Zhao Yun and Liu Bei meet during the Dongzhou Coalition, which they had in Romance of Three Kingdoms IX. I loved that event. And then, Zhao Yun switched sides and went over to Liu Bei. So that's what that is. Council of Fa Zheng is an event that I like because personally I think Liu Bei and Fa Zheng should have hooked up a lot earlier. I think Liu Bei should have had him. It was obvious that Fa Zheng was partial towards Liu Bei in history, and I think if they had met earlier, seeing as Fa Zheng had been around with the general either way that it would have made a nice fit. So that's how I get Liu Bei, an intelligence officer, early on in the game, so that I have someone to be my advisor besides Guan Yu, because Guan Yu is a shitty advisor. And besides that, he's much better served as your military advisor. So instead of your, like, you know what I mean, as your war advisor, instead of your advisor. I forget what they're called. I'll show you in the game. Ruler of Promise is my Tao Qian event, where Tao Qian surrenders to Liu Bei, asks Liu Bei to take over his country as he's dying. Ma Tangzov is my it's basically my creation of the letter. Now, I don't know if I've messed with it. I've messed with some of these over time. This was originally a really good one, and I'll show you just so you can see how one plays out. You have to write all the scripting here. You have to put, each character who's speaking, what's happening. This is a really basic one. It was originally fairly good, but I think I messed with it for certain effects in other playthroughs. But I'll show you a preview of basically what a finished one looks like. Unfortunately, you can't have verbal audio. You can't have them actually saying the word, reading the words on the created ones. But here, it's just basically, the Emperor is sending this Enoch, basically mimicking the, what was it called? Like I forget. Something like the Silk Belt Treaty or whatever it was, where the Emperor asked Ma Teng and Liu Bei and a few other warlords to band together, right. The Emperor put a decree for all lords to rise against Cao Cao and free him, and Liu Bei and Ma Teng and a few other historically signed on with that, a few other small ones. Liu Bei and Ma Teng were the main ones. So this is to mimic that, and basically what it in effect does is, in my version, it's ordering Ma Teng to free the Emperor from Cao Cao, and if he fails, to help Liu Bei. So, here you go. Ma Teng's army emptied out of the cities to attack Dongzhou. When Liu Bei saw his new ally, he charged in support. The battle was fierce, and though they were unable to destroy Cao Cao, Liu Bei and Ma Teng managed to form a resistance. So, in the end, what it forms is, we can see the results right here. Ma Teng and Liu Bei become boon companions. Ma Chao and Liu Bei become boon companions. And then these cities that were formerly Ma Teng's become Liu Bei's cities. So, of course, that never happened in history, but it's a fun way to get a foothold. I don't have all of these events active all the time. In order to activate them, you go to restrict events, and like you can see, there's only 3 events that I have here that are highlighted. My 5 Tiger event, of course, my money event, of course, which is my own cheat because I played it through the hard way many times, but it is nice to have extra money to be able to buy the swords when they come up. I could just give my character, you can assign your character specialties. I could just give him the ones that I want him to have, but I don't. But in order to get the ones you want, you got to buy out a lot of stuff to get more stuff to appear in the inventory. And I don't really like my created stuff. I like a lot of the historical stuff, so I like to find it. But you have to buy out a lot of shops to find some of the stuff because there's so many items in this game. Like, unlike a lot of the other Romance of Three Kingdoms, you can find every item in almost every playthrough and acquire them because there was only like a total of, 10 weapons and 10 horses, or things that made you go faster, including Zhuge Liang's chariot. So that there was only a few of those things. In this one, there's so many. There's hundreds. And if you create some or download events off the server, they'll come with created items already created, and so it's you get so many in there. And once you have created items, like they it gets kind of ridiculous with how many are in there. So it's hard to get all the ones you want. Got to get the Book of Rites, Sun Tzu's manual. You got to get all the main ones. You got to get those. You got to find them. So, anyways, Jushu's events. I've got ones where if you play a scenario where Jushu goes over to Cao Cao because Cao Cao seduces him over with the threat of killing his mother. Then you got this one, activate this one, so Jushu will come back to Liu Bei. Way of the General, that my last playthrough, I was doing a Zhang Wei playthrough. Way of the General is where Zhuge Liang goes and gives, passes on his knowledge to Zhang Wei and gives him his manual. Emperor Kong Mi. Also in the last playthrough, I hated Liu Shan so much. So I wanted Zhuge Liang to be my emperor, and I was gonna serve Zhuge Liang. So I made Liu Shan die and Kong Ming take the throne in my last playthrough. So that was pretty fun. The emperor was my mentor, so that's cool. I should probably just change though. Maybe not play with any of my created events on this playthrough, on this video. So let me go ahead and restrict all of these. Maybe except money. I'll keep my money event. keep my money event because that'll make the playthrough a little bit easier for the purposes of the video. We'll just use that excuse and confirm. Yes. Now the frustrating part, I'll show you one more thing before we get to gameplay. Actually, I'll probably end this video with no gameplay and just doing a little mini tutorial of some of these changes, a little informative thing. So one thing I do want to show you when doing the events, the hardest part of the events is how they appear, getting them to appear. Okay, so I'll go into just creating a new event here. If you do an event, that's where you name it. You gotta name it something. So I'll put a 1 in there just for purposes of display. Event type, you can do event or bond request. If you're really looking for something to have an effect, you want to do an event type. The bond request types are actually, to be honest, I've never even really experimented with them. It's so easy to form bonds in the game. Like, the part is one of the funnest parts of the game that I've never wanted to cheat on making people give me bond requests or bond request events when in general it's easier just to do an event anyway. Even if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to make two people meet and form a bond, you can just do an event and have the result of the event be that these people are now friends, or that these people are now acquainted, or that they have a 50% towards acquainted. Like, I mean, it's so much, there's so much more comprehensive here. But like I was saying, the thing I wanted to show you is how to get the event to appear. Now, so you've got a couple choices with the opportunity, the way the event occurs. If you visit, of course, this is by visiting a specific person. The event would appear on visiting them. This is a pretty unreliable way to make an event occur. It also has very few amount of effects that you can generate with it. It's really not worth. I mean, really, it's basically like doing the bond request event, except like it says, it shows that the only way to do the bond request is visit, and basically the only thing you can do on the visit are bond request events. So tavern, there's different facilities in the game that you can stop into. So when the opportunity is one of the facilities, that means you just stop into the opportunity, and then stop into the facility, and the opportunity may happen. Your main base is also one of your facilities. Seasonal change. This is one that I would generally prefer, except for the fact that the seasons kind of make it hard. In general, I would go by season just because of how past ROTK games have been set up, where events happen generally on the season change. So when I started doing this, I focused on doing on the season, and it's a little bit harder because seasonal events already happen and yours kind of get kicked aside. So it doesn't really show up as it doesn't really start the event as reliably. Day change is the easiest one to get it done on, and so we'll show this one. Branch just means whether there's a choice or not. There's really nothing you can do after the choice. I mean, you can make if you make a yes choice, a yes or no choice, you can make different effects for each choice. But which is nice. I like that. And generally, I don't really use it that much. What I would really love to have, what option I would really love to have for this branch is duel. I would love to have a setup where I could start an event and have a duel in the middle of it, and based on the outcome of the duel, have different effects happen. You can't do that. There's no way to set up an event like that. I've tried a million different ways to try and see if there's some way to include a duel in an event. I have not found any way to do so. You can't, as far as I know, create duels in events. So I'm going to put no branch for this. So we'll go like this, and I'll show you. This is how you get the conditions to appear. Okay? So you're using it by date. Now, the most reliable, if you just go in and put date occurred, and if you do it exactly, if you do an exact date, that is the worst way to get it to appear, because it most likely won't. There won't be, everything else going on is not going to allow that to happen. What you want to do is kind of manipulate things so that they happen reliably for you. For instance, if you're playing a ruler and you know you're playing a ruler, one of the best ways to make sure this event's going to happen is do something like officer status, ruler, there you go, and whoever you're playing. So main character, that makes it easy. Your character is the ruler. As long as your main character is the ruler, then this event is going to happen, right? I mean, that's what that's saying, although there's several things that could still prevent it, but having a couple of known truths that are automatically true really does help an event start. So that's one of the ones I use. And then aside from that, what you want to do is, make sure everything else, you're gonna want to put some kind of date in. I usually put after the date I want to have it happen. So, for instance, if I'm doing something with Liu Bei, usually I'm playing an earlier scenario. So I might say it happens in 194 after May of 194, and then anytime after May of 194, this can trigger, which is good. It'll usually trigger as soon as it can. So you have that anytime after that, and then whatever your other specific condition is will probably be based on on the specific event you're trying to achieve. But this is basically how you want to set it up to get it to reliably start for you. Let me show you some of mine so you can see. Okay, so you can see the conditions on here. Appears when you set historical events to yes, because you got the yes or no. Some of them, if you play the 13 rulers scenario, where it's a fictional scenario and historical events don't happen. So if you want events to happen in that scenario, you have to set them to appears when historical events to no in the options menu. So that's an important distinction. If you don't do that, you're not going to get it to happen. Main character is ruler. Main character is affiliated with GOP. So in this way, I'm able to make this happen only when my main character is located in GOP. Actually stationed in GOP. He can't just be walking through GOP and sitting there and visiting with people. Like, he has to actually be stationed there. So these are all the ways it makes that one happen. Now, one that I want to happen all the time, I'll show you, like, for instance, the money one, which I want it to happen reliably. I want it to happen often. This one happens Sorry, I had to cough. This one happens with 300 out of 10,000 probability. So, which is dialed down a lot. I had it originally at like 1,000 out of 10,000 probability, so that's a little 1 in 10 chance. So it's happening all the time, way too often. So it's just a main character is at main character current city is the easiest validation condition you can put in there. Because your main character is almost always at your main character's current city, unless you're traveling. And one of the reasons why I put this in there for the money one is just so it couldn't happen all the time. Because sometimes, I'm in battle, I'm not spending any money, I'm out battling things, and I'm sitting there getting events where I'm getting money popped up all the time. So that it kind of felt cheap and cheating. So I put this one in there. It's kind of a funny. You'll see it when we play the game. So yeah, that's my basic assessment of how the game is. All the things that they added with the expansion, which the things are too cool to remove. The event editor, way too cool to remove. So I don't want to remove the expansion, but I did really enjoy the gameplay before the expansion. It made it a lot fast. Like, one of the downfalls of ROTK is when you're trying to take those last remaining fringe cities and you gotta just deploy armies everywhere around, even though you're not getting any resistance, and it just takes so much time. And so when the expansion added on, it kind of went back a little bit to that. It still takes a lot of time to clean up the end game, where before I could just put out one army and just boom them all down. It's real easy. Pluses and minuses, but definitely the event editor is too cool. So, hero mode, kind of like a tutorial mode. A lot of people ask for help on hero mode things. They're pretty easy. I haven't played them all yet. It's the only trophy I don't have. I have every other trophy. I would have this platinum trophy, except for the only trophy I do not have is I cleared all stages of the hero mode. It's the only one I don't have. Every single other one I've done. Oops. Looks like there's successfully completed spy. I did not do that yet. I could do that at any time. I would only have to play as a creative general with the spy skill, or as Yuan Shu, which I'm pretty sure is like the only general. I mean, I may be wrong, but he's one of the very few in-game who have the spy skill. Now there is a couple more. It's not just Yuan Shu. There's a couple more. But none of them are people I play with. None of them are generals I'm interested in playing with. So whenever I do it, I'm just going to be playing them, doing one spy mission, saving it, and getting that trophy. So not something I've really been racing to do. Movie lists. I don't think it'll let me record the movie, but I'll show you one of the movies they got. Let's do Battle of Chibi. Huh?
对酒当歌，人生几何？譬如朝露，去日苦多。气阔谈宴，心念旧恩。月明星稀，无却南飞。绕树三匝，何之可依？
计策成功了，将士们，让他们尽情品尝烈焰的滋味吧！可恶的周瑜，果然玩弄了计策吗？全军出击，不能让曹操活着回去！
So yeah, cool. So I'm gonna cut this video off right now, and then I'm going to post another one with a quick play tutorial. Maybe not a quick, but a playthrough, probably a whole playthrough. So you can check it out. All right. Later.